Okay, we have about 3 minutes, 2 minutes till we start. Well, good Thursday afternoon, everyone. It is right at 2 o'clock Central Time. My name is Don Du, and I am monitoring this session. I just need to go over a couple of housekeeping tips that I'm sure you haven't heard before. But I want to make sure that since this is a very interactive session, that you know how to chat and say hello, which there have been a lot of people already. But depending on what device you have, scroll to the menu and it'll either be on the top or the bottom. You can find the menu bar and you can find where it says chat and say hello and join in throughout the session. It'll be very interactive, like I said. There's also closed captioning and cart. On that same menu bar, there is a button that says CC. It says closed caption underneath. We have ASL sign language. The interpreter will be one of the panelists. If you can't see them, have yourself in gallery view and you can actually adjust the size of the PowerPoint presentation. And then you'll be able to have them right side by side with you. so it makes it a lot easier for yourself. Questions, we'd like to have you put in the Q&A box. It makes it a lot easier for me to read to the presenters. And then if you want to add to the conversation by phone or microphone, you can raise your hand by selecting the hand raise option. Or if you're using a phone, you can press *9 on the phone. So I want to go ahead and welcome you to this session. It's Strategies for Rural Outreach and Networking. And I'm going to have the presenters introduce themselves. So thank you again.
Thank you, Don. And thank you everyone for joining us. So as Don said, this session is called Strategies for Rural Outreach and Networking. And I think we'll start off with some introductions of who all is going to be presenting with you today. And I will do my best to speak slowly, and I will we will also do our best to try to turn our cameras off when we're not speaking so that folks can see the interpreter. If we don't, someone just holler in the chat, or Mary will, I think, rein us in. I guess that, Raina, do you want to turn your, can we both have our cameras on? I don't know how many we can have on, but okay, I'll go first. Hi. My name is Lily Griman. This is such a bizarre presentation, way to do a presentation. We were talking about it earlier, how I know there are over 100 people watching right now, but I can't see any of you, and it's interesting. But again, my name is Lily Griman. I am a project director at the Research and Training Center on Disability in Rural Communities in Missoula, Montana. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman with light brown hair. I'm wearing wooden earrings that have the continents etched into them. And I'm at my home, in my home office in Missoula, Montana. And welcome. I'm excited to be here. And I guess I will turn it over then to Raina.
There I am. Hello. I'm Raina Sage. Also really happy to be here in this bizarre situation, but just really been enjoying the conference a lot more than I thought I would. And so I'm really happy. I am also with RTC Rural with Lily in my home office in Missoula, Montana, and I'm a sociologist working on these projects. And I'm a white woman with short brown curly hair. I'm wearing my RBG earrings and a yellow jacket. And in the background of my home office is a rainbow tree. And I'm drinking tea out of my Mr. Rogers mug. Ashley, do you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. I am Ashley Shaw. I am the program manager for Disability Resource Center out of Wilmington, North Carolina. I live in a very rural community in a city called Tabor City, North Carolina. We are in a rural county called Columbus, North Carolina, which is how I was introduced to working with RTC Rural. I am a Black woman. I have on a multicolored striped dress, and I have on earrings that have the continent of Africa with all the flags of every country. I have braids in my hair right now, and I am wearing lipstick for the first time in probably about 6 months since we've been working from home. I look forward to talking with everyone and answering any questions as well as sharing all my experiences. Christina.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Holtzclaw, and I am the Assistant Director at Northwest Georgia Center for Independent Living in Rome, Georgia. We have been open for 16 years. We've been serving Northwest Georgia for 16 years. We opened on January the 4th of 2004, I know because I was there. And we serve 15 counties in Northwest Georgia. I started as an independent living coordinator. I've been assistant director for 7 years. And our mission is to empower people who have disabilities so that they may determine their own future, to work towards a more user-friendly, accessible community. We serve Bartow, Catoosa, Dade, Fannin, Floyd, that is where our physical office is at, Gilmer, Gordon, Harrelson, Murray, Paulding, Pickens, Polk, Walker, and Whitfield. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a white woman. I have blonde hair and it's pinned up, and I'm actually wearing the dress that I would be wearing in Orlando. I've never gotten dressed up to go to my basement before, but here I am. And I have on some earrings that are shaped like little diamonds, I guess, and I have a little diamond shaped pendant necklace. I'm honored to be involved with this project, developing peer mentoring curriculum to assist SIL staff. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yay, that was perfect, Christina, leading us into, this is Lily, leading us into our, a description of the projects that have brought all of us together on this call and then all of us together at this workshop. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Raina to talk first about some of the research methodologies that underpin the projects. I'm just going to turn it over to her and turn my camera off.
Thank you, Lily. This is Raina, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about community-based participatory research. So the RTC Rural has a 30+ year history of doing this kind of work. It's really important, and it involves projects that address inequality by partnering with diverse community members and organizations in rural places to build on existing community strengths and resources, and to promote co-learning and equal participation among everyone that's involved in partnering in the projects. The inequality to be addressed in these kinds of projects is often defined by the community partners, as well as the solutions that we then implement. As you've been hearing probably, or at least I have, in many other sessions, this kind of work that's on the ground and community-based, it takes a long time, and you have to build relationships, and but that's also what makes it so very rewarding, and how we got to this place where we're here with our community partners presenting today. So that's my little intro for community-based participatory research. Ashley, do you want to talk about rural community resource mapping next? Is that the accurate order? Or is it Lily?
I'll pop in, and I think, Ashley, if you want to join in, please do. I can give a little bit of a description of our rural community resource mapping project that we are currently engaged in with Ashley and DRC in North Carolina. And we are also working with a county in Michigan, and we'll hopefully be working with more counties over the next few years. So part of this is if you're interested in participating in a project like this, this is an opportunity to learn about it and hear from us about what it might be like to get engaged. Essentially, rural community resource mapping is a strategy that Centers for Independent Living can use. It's a community development strategy that can help support outreach activities in mapping resources that are available, in connecting with local partners, and then mapping the resources that are available within the communities, the rural community that you are trying to expand into. Ashley, do you want to share a little bit about, we'll get into a little bit more, but I think if you have anything to add.
I will definitely encourage everyone that's listening, if you have a rural community that you've been having any issues with doing outreach in, this project has been such an enormous help for us to get out and get involved. I will save the details for a little bit later though.
And there is some actual mapping that happens, and we will be sharing that with you towards the end of this presentation. So so now I think Christina and Raina, I'll let you talk about RCLD.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so RCLD, because in disability world, we all need at least a couple more acronyms in our lives. So Rural Community Living Development is a project that we started last year where we planned on actually being in community and in a number of communities to use community development strategies like coalition building and partnering with diverse groups to address issues around community living for rural people with disabilities, but COVID. So we shifted gears, and the end goal is to have a peer-to-peer mentoring program that April will facilitate. And I heard other people talking about the peer-to-peer mentoring programs and how great they are. So we're really excited to add to this. And so we shifted gears to bring together a development team from across the US to build this peer-to-peer mentoring curriculum. And Christina is on this team, and we meet weekly. And I don't know, Christina, if you want to share about that experience so far.
Yes, I thank you. I sat down this morning. I really reflected on why I wanted to be on this awesome project, and there were so many reasons that come back. 16 years that our center has been reaching out to the 15 counties that we work with, and if our executive director, Maya Santa Maria, has taught me anything, it's to look way ahead of us and look at the big picture of where we're going. And I think one of the things that, we've learned, if anything, every week I listen to all these awesome ideas, and I'm watching this come together. And, I've learned that if you've been in one rural county, that's exactly what you've been in. You have been in one rural county because they're all so different. So we started 15 very unique counties that they are in different levels of, they have certain, they have roadblocks, they have different resources, some have no resources. And what we do is, we have to get to know these counties, each and every one of these counties on a different level. And what we have in our 16 years, the tells I can tell, we have learned from experience and a lot of things that we've worked with. Our director was just mentioning yesterday, our center did an awesome workshop yesterday. And one thing she reminded me about was, our Northwest Georgia Regional Hospital had closed here several years ago. And, the needs of our counties overnight, literally overnight, changed. And we had to adjust to that. There was resources that were not in place. the hospital, while that is a good idea to, close that, at the time, the resources weren't there. And it really sent shockwaves through Northwest Georgia and beyond. So, we had to adjust to, some of the people who had mental health disabilities who became unhoused or ended up in jail. And those are the type, overnight things that can happen in a community that we have the Georgia School for the Deaf that is in our community. That is that is actually in our Floyd County where our office is housed. And we have so many, that is a community of its own where we have 3 staff members, 2 that work with consumers who are hearing impaired themselves. And you have to have that personal, where they can get in there and work hands-on with consumers and know the culture. So, I mean, that is this part of, some of the things that we've learned. And while it sounds, wonderful to get out there and you want to roll out, say, a lunch and learn or something like that, you really have to know those communities before you get out there. And we've learned some of those by, we had a money management class that we tried to, it's a very popular class. And we started that course, and we had this one county that nobody signed up, and we were just in the staff meeting like, nobody's signing up. We don't understand why. And for whatever reason. So about a month later, I met with a person from the Council for the Blind who told me, he'd lived in that county for literal years. And he said, the location that you chose is a location where often people go and they have their benefits taken away. So, we didn't know that at the time. So knowing that, we found out that, yes, you can have food, you feed them, they'll come. But if you don't have, if you don't know the background of that community, when you roll that out, you're going to go home with a lot of food because nobody came. So that is just, some of the things I'm learning. What I would have given anything for this tool 16 years ago. But there's something to be said for experience. But yes, there's so many things, attitudinal barriers that you come across. It's just so many things. But whatever, I think I speak for our team that I know is out there and supporting me today. Thank you. Our dream is to address and promote and nurture independent living for each county, whatever that means to that county, and make it's going to be unique as independent living is. So I think with some of the things that we call it planting seeds is what I call it. Planting seeds. I've learned that from our director. We don't always know where our seeds are going to go. We've had them go ways that we weren't expecting. But if one thing I've learned is those connections, so they reach far and wide. It just sometimes takes longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Now I think Lily is gonna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. This is Lily, and I think that set us up really good for just a little, we're going to try a little bit of an interactive-ish experiment right now, and ask you all, what does the slide here says, what is rural outreach and networking? And I think what we're really trying to get at is, what does rural outreach and networking look like in your center? And I'm hoping, I think Christina had such a great, I love that, planting seeds and scattering seeds. What are the activities and things that you all at your centers do to try to reach rural communities? And maybe what are some of the challenges that you have? And we're hoping that folks could just go ahead and type some thoughts into the chat, and then we'll kind of read them out to get a little bit of engagement. If folks want to speak too, I think that they can, like raise a hand or something. I think Dawn will help us if that happens.
If you would like to speak, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we can unmute you, or you can type it into the Q&A or the chat.
We have someone who says robocalls on events. I wonder if we get a little bit more on that. Is that doing like dial outs to remind people? This is Carmen. Anyone else? What do folks do? What does outreach and networking look like for you?
Oh, go ahead. Carmen, you can try to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So when we create any events, especially in the rural areas, because we had like hill towns that don't have much internet connection. So we either send an mail or like a lot of flyers through the email, and also we do a robocall to those um, areas for the events that we are having. Yeah, some of the events could be like trainings on housing or trainings on how to stay safe in the community or to keep their homes or anything like that.
That's great. That is not something that I've heard of. And I think what a cool idea. We have a lot of stuff coming into the chat. So
just one moment before we remute. Carmen, do you mind answering how much are the robocalls?
We select the consumers that we have in those areas, and we do like if an event is happening maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but it takes a lot of planning because we need to develop the flyers, we need to make sure we have the people ready for the events and the speakers and things like that. So it takes around like 2 months. I do some of the robocalls because I can translate in Spanish, and then someone else does the robocall in English. So we simultaneously send that out on a particular day. Also, with the flyers, I can translate the flyers as well. And when the event happens, and if there is someone who needs Spanish speaking, I'm there to translate as well. And we do it in a venue that is nearby where they live, or we can actually accommodate transportation for them if they need to.
Great.
Thank you so much, Carmen. And that's something I'm seeing coming up in the chat as a significant barrier, and that we hear across rural communities is transportation. And so being able to provide transportation, if possible, in these rural communities that often have limited access. And it's interesting, I'm thinking about the true statement that Christina said of every rural community is unique. And then I want to say, except for probably they need transportation. There's so much, you guys, going on in the chat. This is so amazing. People are talking about posting in grocery stores, connecting with case managers at partner agencies, holding regular office hours at partner agencies in those rural communities, being in the community. That's important and something we will talk about next. Trying to connect up with local service providers. some of the challenges that COVID has presented to reaching rural communities, in that lots of things are now on Zoom calls. Zoom can be challenging in rural. I saw even before we started in the chat, there was some back and forth about challenging internet connectivity in rural. We even had that here in Missoula, which isn't rural exactly, but pretty much the entire town lost internet last week. And that definitely was a wake-up call of how dependent we all are now.
Lily, if you don't mind, Jim, your line is open.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see it.
I'm from the same, I hope you can hear me. I'm from the same IL center as Carmen in Massachusetts. We service Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden counties in Massachusetts. It's a mix of I guess, suburban, somewhat rural, and urban area. And what I wanted to bring up is that we network with community action in our area, Franklin and Hampshire counties, so far now. And it's a bi-weekly meeting with about 50 service providers. We work with people with disabilities of all kinds in those three counties. And it's a networking group that gets together with virtual meetings every other week. And it's been very helpful, especially now with COVID, on what kind of resources are available for people, just disabled or not, and of the diverse communities in our area, and disadvantaged people, resources available for them in the community. It's just a wonderful resource for us and the community involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm gonna kind of move forward because there's so much great participation, and I want to make sure we also have some time at the end as well. But I want to get into just a couple of the things that we've been learning also as we've been engaging in both the community resource mapping as well as the peer mentoring curriculum development. And I think that, and anyone, Rena or Christina or Ashley, if you want to jump in, please do at whenever anything comes up. Sorry, I'm looking now at my own outline. I think one thing that has really become apparent when we're talking about rural are these, in terms of getting started and getting out into those communities, is while it's important to know those communities, and we'll talk about that next, it's also incredibly important to know yourself and to know your organization and think about who is represented in your organization. And this idea of representation has come up a lot in some other presentations around serving all sorts of marginalized groups that have intersecting identities with disability. And so for rural, some similar questions exist. I think thinking about, do you have an urban perspective at the CIL? And do you have preconceived notions or biases or assumptions about the rural communities that you serve? And I think we tend to think about, there's a national kind of idea that I'm sure not everyone on this call feels identifies with, but I think when people think about rural, they often think about rural as being white. Farmers, right? Farmland. Whereas we know that while there are plenty of white rural communities, there are a lot of rural communities of color. And so I think Carmen was great to let her share about offering translation for those robocalls, services like that, really thinking, does our organization represent then, and how does our organization reflect all of those other communities that we serve? Raina, do you want to talk a little bit about rural cultural humility?
Maybe. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so we have had some sessions on, and we've been talking about cultural competency, or I like cultural humility, because not coming from a culture, we are always never going to be experts in someone else's culture. And with rural culture, just coming from a place where we understand that many rural places have a history, and especially rural places where there were Black and Indigenous people of color, there historically have a lot of history of oppression, and this can occur in other communities as well, in terms of communities that are extraction based, and where companies came in and built communities and brought in workers in order to extract the minerals or trees or whatever they were extracting. And so these kinds of deep historical pieces can make it hard to build relationships. And as outsiders, many people in rural places are not trusting of outsiders. And the way that our systems are set up is to privilege the urban centers where the most people live. And so just having that knowledge and being aware of that piece when you are approaching a community, knowing that their perspectives on things may be very different. Their perspectives on disability, on community living may be just, they may not have ever even thought of it, which I know we experience in urban settings as well, but it may be more pervasive. And just coming into these settings with some curiosity and openness, as well as I attended Mel's talk, yesterday, day before yesterday, and this idea of just knowing you're going to make mistakes, and that this is just part of the process of building relationships, and having that humility. So I think that is basically what I would say about rural cultural humility.
Thank you so much, Raina. I've switched slides now to talk about getting a little bit more into what everyone is kind of sharing already and had shared in the chat, and really what Christina started to get into earlier in this presentation about really getting to know your service area. And so the slide here, quick tips: know your rural service area, know before you go, doing a community scan, understanding how people are connecting in that community, joining existing networks. All of these are already points that came up really well in the chat that we were just talking about. I think that one strategy that I might call on Ashley to talk about a little bit here, which hasn't come up as much, is really having a presence in that community. We've been using the term boots on the ground. And by presence, I mean having a staff member who lives in a rural community, lives and potentially works there, and we know that, you know, plenty of people have satellite offices, and this is one strategy towards maybe building a reputation in order to get those offices there. But I want to let Ashley talk a little bit more about the value that that has, especially in her community.
So as I said earlier, I work for Disability Resource Center, which is located in Wilmington. But I physically live in Columbus County, which is our most rural served county, as well as our pretty much furthest away county. I relocated here from a still in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia, Life Incorporated, thinking that, you know, I was going to have that commute every day. And I have to say that COVID has definitely been an eye-opener for my center. And it has allowed me to actually probably do more work, boots on the ground, as Lily said earlier, than I was doing pre-COVID. I was actually, through this project, able to partner with someone who is very involved in the community, but not able to do as much as they would like. It's an organization here called Community CPR. And we have been able to reach and connect with so many other organizations and consumers through this, just basically being here. It started as assisting with food, a food need that was not being met as far as volunteer-wise. The food was there, but they needed people to assist with passing out the food to individuals with disabilities. And I said that I would help, and from there it just kind of rolled on. But I think that the biggest thing was letting that other organization know that we were here, not just saying that we were here, is what they told me that a lot of organizations have done. They've kind of done like a drive-by and, you know, said, hey, we're here. If you need us, call us, but not actually been there. And so we've been partnering with this organization to do a lot of things in the county. And now they have actually offered us space to use that we don't have to pay for because we're not the richest still. And so now we're partnering to start a computer lab for individuals to be able to come and fill out job applications and submit disability claims and just be able to access the technology that's really not there in a rural community. And we're also being able to provide our consumers with their resources. So it's been wonderful to know that rural outreach is in our county is very hard, that you are seen as an outsider. I have family here, so I have a little bit of insight, a little bit of credibility, as I say, a little street cred. But it's definitely been a learning experience for my center, but we have grown so much because of the willingness from my center and my board to allow me to be able to work remotely from this county and focus on them totally. So I would say that it is beneficial to have someone who lives in the county, because the constant in and out is what the rural communities are used to. They're used to, hey, we have resources, but you have to, you know, go to this other town that's 2 hours away. And as everyone noted, transportation is not always available in rural communities. So it is awesome if you can set some constant hours or a constant day that everyone can know when they can reach you in that community. It's been a tremendous help for us.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I think we have someone who has a question or a comment, so I want to let Matt speak here in a second. But I think what I really want to emphasize and what we've learned from both projects, oh, I'm not on my video, is that importance of time, and that this work takes time and commitment. And it means it can take a long time, and that commitment can be hard when resources are scarce. Matt, you go right ahead, please.
Yes, I live in eastern Iowa, a very rural county. I had a spinal cord injury in '83, long before the ADA and internet was conceived. And at the time, one point hasn't been touched upon, and that's that people with new injuries don't even know what questions to ask. and that staff at hospitals, whether it be social workers, doctors, physical therapists, OTs, aren't always very good about making referrals to community resources. So you go through your initial rehab, and when you go home, you're pretty much on your own. And hopefully you've got supportive family or friends, but if you don't, you're doubly screwed, to be blunt. And so, yeah, my local Center for Independent Living is probably about 40 minutes away. And in the state of Iowa, which has 99 counties, we've got 6 CILs, and 2 of them are by state. One Iowa, Illinois, and one Iowa, Nebraska. So I don't know how bad it is in other rural predominant states, but in Iowa, we don't even have very many CILs to get to.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is Lily again. I think that is a really good point, and that it can be especially challenging when centers are spread so thin across vast areas. And that is where I think some of that identifying local to the best that you can is definitely one of those strategies. And you set us up really well for our next slide, which we've really heard is the extent to which a lot of organizations use disability education and awareness as an outreach strategy. And this is where I think you can see that identifying local partners and then building disability awareness within those local partnerships is a way to, and community resource mapping is, I think, a tool that could be really helpful for doing this and spreading the word and getting those connections made. And so really these speaking and training opportunities, and Christina mentioned earlier, these lunch and learning lunches that are hosted, and I think centers often do a lot of similar things. I don't know, Christina, if you want to speak briefly about those learning lunches. I know we only have 15 minutes. Somehow this has flown by, and I know we want to save a little more time for engagement at the end, as well as sharing how you can get involved in these programs. So Christina, I'll let you talk, and then I may end up skipping a couple slides.
Okay. This is Christina, and yes, we pre-COVID, we did many lunch and learns, and we also worked with the prisoner reentry program with classes. So, you know, our lunch and learns and classes kind of, we actually went to one county where we did a presentation, and it was it was called the Job Circle. It was at vocational rehabilitation. We brought that back to our county here in Floyd, and we tried that. It seemed like it didn't take off so well, and I'd almost forgotten the idea, and we revamped that into a class. So we've done classes and lunch and learns, and our lunch and learns, we do, I think our relationship lunch and learn was one of our most popular, and you know, we've had so many, we've had, you know, money management, we've had, you know, disaster preparedness, and we did one that was an adaptive CPR first aid class that I think everybody loved, where the mannequins were on the table and people could get their wheelchairs under and learn CPR. So that, I mean, that's some of the things that we've done. And of course, now with Zoom, we don't get to do the lunches unless you bring your own, but you know, Zoom has had its place. It's leveled the playing field for people with disabilities, especially blind who can't drive. So yeah, you know, our lunch and learns and our classes have really taken off on Zoom as well. So it's been an adventure.
You said, and that's a beautiful, this is Lily, transition into the slide around rural virtual engagement, which I think I'm so aware of the time, and we have had a ton of great engagement on the chat, which is great. I don't know if we have any looming questions. I think we're okay right now. And this almost honestly feels like a topic all its own, that we're still in the midst of learning about how to engage rural virtually, if it can be done when internet is such a barrier, as we know, and how this actually looks when you start doing this. So maybe we just give some 5 minutes for, I don't know, Ashley, I know you've had some struggles with this in Columbus County, and Raina, I'm just talking this whole time and I feel like I should not, but just give a little quick time to think about this, because this is a real challenge.
Virtual is definitely something that it seems really easy whenever you live somewhere that internet is reliable. But as we have discovered, dealing with the school systems here, and also dealing with trying to conduct our agency meetings, it's not always accessible for rural communities. One of the things that telephone has been about the most reliable. So that has been one of the easiest ways to reach people. And the majority of the people here prefer to do face-to-face. So it has been a challenge, but meeting people where they are has been, I think, the biggest thing that people appreciate the most from this whole situation. Yes, there's COVID. Yes, we use protections, masks, social distance. But just being able to do that one-on-one with that person who is so used to being pushed off from telephone calls or not having access to a smartphone or not having access to a computer, it has changed a lot of lives for us, and just really, really shown people that we are here to truly help, and we will go that extra distance. So don't be afraid to just ask people what's most comfortable for them. And if it's possible for you to do it, do it.
Mute, Lily.
No, I just said such a great thing. I said meeting people where they're at. That's IL, right? So what a great, and I see some great comments in the Slack, oh my goodness, the chat, about using CARES Act funding to purchase phones for folks to get connected. And I think that's been this, for folks that are using that CARES Act funding to connect people in, I think that's so exciting, and also a really, I think, eye-opening in terms of a new route for advocacy around getting the infrastructure built out, petitioning, you know, working towards getting that access for everyone. So we only have 10 minutes left. And so I wanted to move on just to talk really quick about how people can get involved. I really wanted to share our community resource map for Columbus County with everyone really quickly. So I'm going to do that right now in the next 3 minutes, and then we'll try to open up. I see we have a question waiting. There's been such great interaction on the chat, so thank you so much for doing that. So we are looking for other communities. We're going to be doing community resource mapping for the next 3 or 4 years, and are looking for other communities who are interested in participating. I have just changed and shared my screen now. This is a Google map, the images of a Google map of Columbus County, North Carolina. On the map, there are a bunch of icons indicating a variety of different resources that have been identified through this project, and they are sorted out into categories such as health and food, employment, financial, legal, childcare, education, training, disability services, supports, housing, utilities, transportation. And these are all resources that we've identified as being critical to support people with disabilities living in the community. And so they are, there's a red line outlining Columbus County in the southeastern part of the state. Quite a good number of resources are located outside of the county, but I can zoom in and you can start seeing, and you can click on an icon and it will bring up information about the resource, where they're located, phone number, and how they're classified. And something that we have used this so far to highlight is to recognize that resources are available, and then ask the question of, well, why aren't people accessing them? Or are they not accessible to everyone? And who are they not accessible to? And this could, come down to physical accessibility, but it could also come down to other folks who are multiply marginalized, and some racial inequity, and people feeling comfortable or uncomfortable accessing resources, and provides a strategy to start those conversations with your community partners. Also, it's a way to notice that while there are resources in the county, they are primarily clustered in a few of the larger towns. And there are people with disabilities living throughout the county, and may even have struggled to get into the largest community, which is Whiteville, from Bug Hill, for example. So this is just one example of, we're trying to create a tool so that folks could create something like this, and use it as a strategy for outreach. Raina, do you want to talk about folks getting involved in RCLD?
Sure. And I want to add that Lily and I work on both of these projects together, along with some of our other research collaborators. And what I have loved so much about working on the mapping project with our teams, we also have a site in Michigan so far, is that this map really highlights just that geographic distribution. And people love the maps. So great work. The peer-to-peer mentoring program that we talked about in Rural Community Living Development, RCLD, is going to be available. The curriculum will be done early spring. And so what we're going to be looking for in the spring is two types of people. One is folks who might want to mentor other people in this process, and using the curriculum that we are developing. We have people on our team that are currently developing it that will hopefully stay on and be mentors as well. And then we're looking for folks who are interested in being able to, who are interested in being mentored in this process. So maybe you're thinking like, man, these are great ideas. I would love to implement them, and it would be fantastic to have somebody to talk to about it, and to get ideas and to problem solve through these processes. So, be looking for some announcements for the mentors and the mentees coming in the spring for this peer-to-peer mentoring program to get off the ground. And also, we wanted to, I think Lily put it in the chat, but we wanted to highlight that RTC Rural, we have a lot of things going on. Some of you are familiar with our health promotion, healthy community living, and as well as other things. And we're going to be having our virtual tabling, perfect timing, right now. I think it started 10 minutes ago, and it goes until, well, it'll be 3 o'clock Montana or Mountain Standard Time. So whatever that is for where you are. And we would love to have any of you come and join us and talk more about that. Lily, did you want to say anything else, or Mary?
I was gonna sneak in really quick and just say, first of all, I can't help myself, but April is also partnering with the RTC Rural on this community living development project and the mentoring program. A lot of you know about mentoring programs through April. And then I just wanted to just mention quick in the Q&A, Beth mentioned, always remember to ask new people seeking services how they heard about your organization to measure your outreach activity. Secondly, be prepared to provide good, timely services when you have an increase in people seeking services. So again, if you want to join the vendor tables, you can click that from the third tab over on the April conference website. And if you would require ASL for that, you can email me at molson.april@gmail.com. And if you give me a 1 hour notice at least, we can set an appointment for you. But otherwise, they're there. Sorry, Raina, I had to jump in mostly because I wanted to say we're doing peer mentoring too with you.
And this is Dawn. I do want to remind people to fill out the evaluations for this workshop. That should be popping up anytime now, I would imagine. And we have like 3 minutes left. I want to thank everybody that presented today. I think it was a great presentation. So if there's any last comments you want to give.
Come to our vendor table and we can talk about mapping and the program and yeah, you can learn more. And thank you so much to Ashley and Christina. You guys have been such great partners through this, and it's been so exciting this last year working with you guys on this project. So.
You're muted, Ashley.
Thank you, Lily and Raina, and I look forward to making this project even bigger and better.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate being a part of this. Thank you to April and the rural team. Special thank you to Northwest Georgia SIL. And I really would like to end with, because I really feel this project is a dream written down with a date becomes a goal, and a goal that's broken into steps becomes a plan, and a plan that's backed by actions becomes reality. And I believe that that's what we're working on, is going from dream to reality. And that's why I'm so proud to be part of this. Thanks to everybody, and thank you for including me.
I can't, that was perfect.
I know, I'm going to do a heart. I'm making a heart with my hands. This is
heart with my hands also. Yeah, and thank you, April, and everybody for just making this and being such great partners to make our research possible. So it's great.
We're going to go get on our vendor table room, I think. Do we stay
Yeah.
on, Mary, or what do you need us to do?
Is Mary still on?
All right, bye. She said good. She told us.
Let's go. Thanks, everybody.
Get out of here.
Thanks, vendor table.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.